What genuinely scares you to the core? Salvador Castellanos said. Being tortured, I think. I feel a healthy amount of fear towards death. Like I am not thinking or worrying about it every day, but I try not to get in risky situations either. But the thought of someone provoking me an immense amount of physical pain with the whole purpose of making me suffer just scares the shit out of me. Pot Charlie said. That everything can change in a second. Just over a year ago my dad went for a walk, had a heart attack and died straight away. He was in great shape, there was no warning, and he was only 50. Everything changed that day. Positive Ion said. I have a 15-year-old son and I am in my late 40s. Your stories just made me schedule a well visit WMIDR. I am extremely close with my son. We do a lot together. I want to be around for him as long as I can be. I am so sorry to hear about your dad. I appreciate your willingness to share your story. Thank you. It meant more to me than I can express. I'm so happy that you had a great man in your life that you loved and who loved you back. Edna 7987 said. It's really touching to me that you have a close relationship with your son. I am just a younger version of my dad, so he always understood me, has always been there for me, and we don't need a lot of words to know we care about each other and love each other. Even when I was just a little shithead, he was always a loving dad. In adulthood he and I have done so many projects on my house together that I will keep these memories forever. He showed me what an equal, loving relationship is with my mother. He has taught me so much about everything so that I can now help others who haven't had such a lucky life. I'm so lucky to still have my dad in his 70s now, and I still want him to be around forever because I know how broken I would feel with him gone. Losing my loved ones is my biggest fear. Cherish every moment with your son. I'm too old for this said. Rightfully so. When I first bought my house, in the US South, it had been abandoned for a few years. I didn't move my belongings in right away because I knew it needed deep cleaning and infestation control of all kinds. First day, I cut open the wall-to-wall carpet to remove it. An entire mess of palmetto roaches, the huge flying American cockroaches, came flying and crawling and swarming out of the gap. I screamed and flailed so loudly that my neighbor came over to see if I was being murdered. She was greeted by me bursting out of the door, still screaming, running blindly past her, followed by a ton of roaches. That's how we met. I had another screaming and flailing fit when I realized the previous folks had left the garbage bin full. For years. So I pulled it away from my house, knowing it'd be full of bugs, then just dumped it on the lawn and ran away, preemptively screaming. It was an interesting first week of homeownership. I'm too old for this said. Well, the big mortgage was a factor. But jokes aside, I ripped out all the carpet. I lived on just a concrete slab for a few years until I could afford bamboo flooring, finished just in time for COVID. I sprayed inside and out religiously as often as the label said I could. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor for about a month while I did the initial renovations to get it livable. One night I was sleeping and one of those demon pets dropped from the ceiling and onto my face. Being trapped in the sleeping bag, not wanting to scream because it's, on my face, trying to wriggle worm my way out, was horrible. When I got free and it flopped onto the floor, I beat it to death with a clothing rod that was on the floor. I also stopped zipping my bag at night. Ugh. It was a rough first couple months, but I eventually got all the generations. I spray monthly now. I haven't seen one in my house in years. They're native here, so I'll find them in yard and shed, but this is my house, dang it. TLDR, I don't know either. It sucked. But it's good now. 69 Fatboy 420 said. One time my phone rang at 2 a.m. and I was up, so I answered it. It was some chatty guy calling from Bulgaria trying to find out when the local Bulgarian embassy was open. I live in America. I googled it for him and then he told me his story about how his family is immigrating. I told him some of my life story as well. After 20 minutes of chatting we said bye and I wondered WTF just happened. My cat Easterly said. My stepdad called me at like 1 a.m. one night about a year ago. I answered the phone freaking out and wondering what had happened. He goes, "Hi my girl, sorry to bug you but I can't sleep," and I'm sitting there like, okay, why are you calling me at 1 a.m.? Then, this man who has been in my life for 18 years, who I've considered a father, asks me permission to marry my mom. That's what was on his mind. He wanted my permission to marry my mom. I was tired and cranky and all I managed to say was fucking finally and hung up and went back to sleep. Called him again in the morning and apologized for hanging up, said I love him and I'm glad he wants to marry my mom. They got married in the park a week ago with just my siblings and I and a few close friends. It was great and suited them and their relationship perfectly and I can't wait for him to walk me down the aisle one day. Nitra said. Except this one time. I was playing poker with my boys a few years back. We just finished up. It's around 1 a.m. on a Saturday. My phone rings. I answer. Woman's voice. Your son has been sending naked pictures to my daughter and this needs to stop. I laughed so freaking hard. I said, Miss, I know you have a wrong number. My son is 7. If he's sending your daughter naked pictures, we both have a big problem on our hands. She apologized profusely and I wished her luck in getting that situation sorted out. But yay, 4 years later and that phone call still brings a smile to my face. Excapagoat said. My brother's friends decided to prank him. This is back in the 1980s before mobile cell phones were affordable for most people. My family wasn't affluent, so it was one phone for the whole household. My brother was working as a camp counselor several hours away. The other counselors get one of the girls' counselors to call and leave an answering machine message that she was pregnant and it was his, complete with crying. They thought my brother had his own phone. Families with more money sometimes had a second landline for their kids. My mother comes home from work and hears that on the answering machine and it was either late at night or the next day before she could talk to him and find out it was a joke. She was not amused. The hero of all time said. My mother-in-law had zero social filter, and so she does this all the time. In my family, if I get a call after 11 p.m., I'm assuming someone is dead. My mill though? She calls my wife at 1 in the morning, and when we pick up she's already mid-sentence talking about trying to get an insurance claim paid for when her house flooded over a year ago. Lizard Possum said. It is definitely bad for family, and I am so sorry your family had to endure that. But it's also super confusing and scary for the sufferer. Not knowing what's happening is terrifying. It's pulling out of a hug and having no idea who is touching you or why, and finding yourself outside and not knowing how you got there, or how to get home. Imagine seeing a stranger beside you in bed and having them swear they're your spouse but you have no idea who they are. Scary as fuck. Jesus Marianges F said. My grandfather passed in January. He was 86. When he learned we had kidney failure he declined dialysis and asked to hospice in his home of over 50 years. The local fire department, he was a member-in-chief for years, built him a ramp and as they wheeled him up to the door he was crying that he didn't think he'd make it back home. He didn't last but a week but he got his wish, to die at home, and family and close friends were able to come by and say their goodbyes. Starage said. As a 62-year I fully agree. Now please tell me, not you, why I can't take my own life when I'm ready for the final exit. I've died twice and was pronounced dead the second time and I think I know what's waiting for me. Either way when I'm done please give me the dignity of making my mind up, by way of a health proxy or other means that it's time. Sorry for the rant. It's personal, my 93-year-old ill mother begged for her life to end. Zeliv said. It was the most painful headache of my life and then the left side of my body went numb limp. I've heard others who've suddenly had issues seeing or speaking but the common thread is the combination with an absolutely debilitating headache. It's a hemorrhagic stroke though so just remember fast. I'm definitely much better than I was but I've still got a ways to go. They told me at the hospital that it typically takes a year to recover from brain injury so we'll see where I am then. But right now I can walk and use my left hand semi-functionally. My memory is a hell of a lot better too. Lots of therapy to get to this point. Typing is hard but I'll get there. Imminent Akrazik person said. I've got an AVM. It's unlikely to burst and it's very small so probably won't kill me, but if it goes, it could wipe out my vision or cause brain damage that would affect my personality. I'd have never known about it if I hadn't had an MRI for an unrelated condition. You might have one right now, just waiting there to fuck your whole life. Small Honeydew said. Scuba diver here. I have occasionally had the experience of swimming at depth between 2 points without being able to see either, following my compass for direction and monitoring my computer for depth. It's almost like a sensory deprivation experience, very weird and strangely peaceful. This was in tropical waters, which reduces the stress level, and I am not frightened of sharks or the kraken because they are not actually a threat to divers. Asifer Lerox said, "There was a little rock island a few hundred yards from our old cottage. My mother and I would swim out to it every year. One day I went by myself. You could dive about 20 feet from the top of it. I dove in and came face to face with the trout. It was like 2 feet away from me. It didn't dash off and just sauntered away like normal. I guess he knew I was no threat to him." Launches Kayaks said, "My grandmother has become that kind of burden and she doesn't care and intentionally makes life impossible for my family. We will probably be sending her to live with my piece of shit aunt because of how they both are behaving. My family might lose her house because of everything we are going through. My grandmother needs to be out of the picture. She's not even a good person and she brought her illness on herself, so I have no pity. She can fuck right off at this point." The Onion Maiden said, "As someone who lost both her parents within a span of 5 months, it's going to be hard. I was 24 when they passed, and had put off college to take care of them. Mom had cancer, Dad was an alcoholic slowly killing himself through neglect. There are a lot of milestones of mine they wanted to see, but now never will. It's difficult, and bitter, and supremely unfair. But time marches ever onward. Tomorrow is still going to come, today will fade, and you'll surprise yourself at your ability to keep going. It's a cliche, but you never know your own resiliency until being resilient is your only option." Phobia Spoiler said, "Same. I'm 18, turning 19, and both of my parents are now in their 60s with some health concerns. Hate having to worry if my mom will even make it to my college graduation even or if my dad starts getting sick because of smoking. Terrified of life and terrified of losing them right when going out in the world. Been dreading the day since I first understood death. So much time wasted worrying, but here I am, and no one around me can get it because all their parents had them young." Porkstacker said, "I don't worry about it for myself. I'm absolutely afraid of watching the people in my life get dementia. My grandparents got it and it was heartbreaking watching my dad have to introduce himself to his own mother. Now he's getting to their age when they got sick and I worry that he's starting to slip. I really don't want to watch my hero fall apart in front of my eyes." Frederick Dinklage said, "Exactly. It's not even death itself I'm afraid of. It's the thought that anyone I care about deeply will be gone forever. I used to be the kind of person who could shrug their shoulders and say, oh well. That's life, but not after what I've been through. I don't want to be delusional, but I'm made to sit here and watch as my loved ones are taken from me, and I can't move on from that. I just can't." Jeff said, "I'm not entirely sure how to put it into words, but just how polarized politics has gotten, combined with the mess of misinformation going around in all these different interest groups with mutually exclusive views, each equally deep in their commitments that they are the righteous ones and everyone else is evil. I guess the elusive nature of truth combined with the hard reality that people will absolutely lie and exploit your better nature to further their aims is what scares me the most. I'm saying this as someone on the libertarian left. To speak of my own people, my worry is that my empathy and perhaps naive desire for utopia is just being manipulated so some revolutionary can come into power and then it's just someone else wearing the same goddamn boot that's on all our necks. I recognize as well that this fear plays into the interests of those who want to crush leftist organization. I guess to expand on it a bit, I am deathly scared of being propagandized at, to the extent that I might become someone's dupe. All the while there are atrocities going on the world over and my sitting back doing nothing only helps those responsible for them. Edit. TL. Baby leftist doesn't have the balls to eat the rich." Lucia School 1 said, "Not the people in them, what they are capable of. I'm now 28, when I was growing up in a broken down, shitty neighborhood. Absolutely littered with gangs. A young girl around 16, she had bipolar disorder 1. She loved modifying parts in old motorbikes she found in the back alley. She would let these guys in a certain gang help her. These guys loved her. She'd play cards and taught them how to cook. She never really attended school, a quiet chill kind of person. This girl eventually got a boyfriend. A popular, asshole kind of guy. He mistreated her so badly. She stopped doing things she loved for him. From what I remember, she was a fairly pale and had longish black hair. She tanned herself for him and became extremely unhappy. Long story short, her boyfriend ended up raping her. filmed it and sent it to those guys in the gang. They ended up killing him. I was told they burnt him badly then shot him in the head. All are in prison now. They tried to speak to her over the phone and even wrote letters to her. I found out she killed herself 2 weeks down the line. They cared about her so much she didn't deserve anything she got. She was mentally unstable and just wanted a job as a mechanic. Gangs scare me shitless. Optic Fiber 18 said. Same. It's the deep unknown that hangs over my head. We were born into this world and we're lucky to live a decent life, but I only need to look around to see insane suffering. The thought that there could be other worlds in the afterlife like this one is deeply disturbing. And that you have no control over what might happen in the afterlife. I had no control over being born into this world either, so who's to say it won't happen again? I just hate the fact that there is so much unknown stuff, so many questions about the universe and existence that remain unanswered. It's just disturbing what a potential afterlife might look like. And the idea that I have no control is deeply depressing and generates a feeling of helplessness. Forced Anal Fist said. It breaks my heart how pervasive this is basically everywhere. As a survivor of too many instances of this, that is a very valid and understandable fear. Especially when in so many places not only will the rapist get off with no punishment, but that the victim will be dragged through the mud, called a liar, face criminal justice, and even be killed for the audacity of speaking out. I can highly recommend taking self-defense courses, and even going so far as to do some physical training, so you have the tools and skills to stay safer. Even just reading some articles and practicing at home can help. A ton of rapists are as pudgy and unfit as the rest of us. It's fear and shock that gives them the advantage, and knowing how to defend and call for help helps the fear of it happening. Obviously it won't work for every situation, but it's better to have and not need it, than need it and not have it. Stay safe, my friend. Plantain said. Flying. Have a horrible phobia of it. Haven't flown in 22 years now. I've missed out on life-changing opportunities because of it. Why couldn't I just be afraid something normal like spiders or clowns? It's so frustrating to see everyone else going all over the world having these adventures and I'm stuck here on the ground missing out on everything because I can't bring myself to get on a plane. Raging Leonard said. That my neighbor literally believes that a secret cabal of pedophiles is injecting us with Chinese nanobots via vaccines. He also believes that Trump won the last election. He never served in the military, yet has adorned his truck with military stickers and ads for firearms. That's bad enough, but what really scares me is that there are many more like him in every town in the US.